this, right? So I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm Tamyra Harrison. I'm the founder and director of Iowans for DC Statehood. I am also 51 today. And I could not think of a better way to spend and celebrate my birthday than to be here with all of you and talk about how we finally make DC Statehood a reality. I know a lot of you, like me, are pretty tired of the Zoom meeting experience and ready for in-person again. I know I am. The last time I saw a large number of people was my birthday party on March 6th of last year, in fact. What a year last year was. But you came to this Zoom meeting, whether it was because you support DC Statehood and you want to learn more about DC Statehood, or because it's my birthday and you just want to celebrate with me. Hopefully it's both. But I thank you for being here. Little brief housekeeping. Keep your mic muted unless you're a guest speaker or you've been asked to unmute your mic, if you would. If anyone has any questions for speakers, please send them to me in the chat and I will address them in order received when we get to the Q&A portion at the end. I have put my email address, phone number, website address, in the information to make donations if you haven't done that or decide you want to do that. It's all in the chat, so you can access that information anytime during the meeting. Write that down if you need it. And that is our basic housekeeping stuff. So you'll be hearing from some great speakers tonight. I am seriously very honored and blessed to have so many of you here tonight. For guest speakers tonight, we have our DC Statehood President, Dr. Selden Spencer, Betty Andrews, who's the president of Iowa-Nebraska NAACP. Bo Shuff will be joining us here in a little bit. He's the executive director of DC Vote, and DC Senator Paul Strauss will close us up for the speaking portion. And I'm so grateful all of you could be here. Thank you again so much. Fun fact, we actually had people sign up to be on here from different places all over Iowa, but also Washington, D.C. We had somebody register from California, somebody registered from Florida, and if my father was here, we would also have North Carolina represented. So, yeah, that was kind of a cool fact I wanted to share with you. Giving a shout out to some of the people who are here with us right now. I see that we have City Councilwoman from Clive, Susan Judkins. Thank you, Susan, for being here. Dr. Andy McGuire, former state party chair, former candidate, and very dear friend, and throws one of the best Christmas parties I've ever been to. Andy, thank you for being here. Love you. Let's see, Senator Michael Brown from Washington, D.C., also with us tonight. Michael, thank you. I really appreciate you being here. Former Representative Franklin Garcia from D.C., also in the house. So really appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here. I want to recognize too, we have two of our board members, Jackie Easley and Jennifer Lunsford. They're both here with us. Of course, my husband, Paul, who most of you know or have met. I couldn't do half of what I do without my husband. He's what helps make everything work and keeps me grounded when I try to either float away or like explode. So, and what kind of kid would I be if I didn't recognize the fact that, while my father has not yet managed to join us, my mother is here, and both my parents have always been so incredibly supportive. Mom, thank you. I love you. Thank you for being here. Always appreciate you. And you know what? I wouldn't be here celebrating my 51st for the 51st if it wasn't for my mother and father. So there you go. So I'm going to kick things off by giving a little background, but I'm going to try not to bore you too much. Maybe you'll learn a good piece of information that you didn't have before, and you can use it when you're talking to others about supporting DC Statehood, which I hope all of you are doing regularly or will from here on. So here we go. Just real briefly, we've got 1787. We had the U.S. Constitution was ratified. In 1790, the site of the district capital was selected. And then in 1801, they decided, oh, we're going to take the representation away from the citizens with the Organic Act of 1801, and we're not going to let them be represented anymore. 1846, we ceded part of DC back to Virginia, so it was shrunk down then. 1961, the 23rd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, granting DC residents the right to vote in a presidential election. So think about that. That's how long that took from the time from 1787 when the Constitution was ratified, and then the Organic Act of 1801. It took until 1961 till the DC residents could finally vote in a presidential election. They get 3 electoral votes, the same number as the smallest state. Then I have a really cool fact here that I want to share with all of you. And this is Iowa specific. 1971, the first of several unsuccessful statehood bills is introduced in Congress by Democrat Ronald Dellums of California and Republican Fred Schwengel of Iowa. Representative Schwengel's statehood bill was introduced before the district got Home Rule Act in 1973. And at that time, the district outnumbered 11 states in population. So kind of a cool fact for us here in Iowa. And 1973, that was when the Home Rule Act was passed. That's when they DC got to elect a mayor and a 13-member council to oversee the city. However, Congress can still ex-nay any law that they want to try to pass, and they can also and they also have say over their budget and everything else. So, and then let's see, 1978, overwhelming bipartisan support. Both chambers of Congress passed the DC voting rights constitutional amendment. This would have given the district representation, not statehood, but at least representation in the House and Senate, and it was voted on and approved by 2/3 majority in both chambers. However, in 1985, the amendment had failed. It had 7 years to get 38 states to ratify it. It only got 16. Iowa was one of those 16 states that did ratify it in 1985 with bipartisan vote, Republicans and Democrats. Fast forward 2006, United Nations Human Rights Committee finds DC's lack of voting representation in Congress is in violation of the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, a treaty ratified by more than 160 countries. So that's kind of a black eye on us, a black eye on our democracy. Fast forward 2016, the people of DC voted overwhelmingly, 87% approving to become a state. They want to be a state. 2020, that was the first ever time we voted and passed DC statehood bill in the U.S. House. So it's starting to move. The dates are getting a little closer again. This year, 2021, the bills are in the House and the Senate. Iowa Representative Cindy Axne is one of the original co-sponsors when they introduced it. I believe they had 202, same as the area code for Washington, D.C. So that's kind of another neat little thing. And then that bill in the House is coming up for a hearing on March 11th. So first thing I'm going to ask you to do is when we get done with this, contact your senators, contact your U.S. representatives, let them know to support H.R. 51 in the House, and be watching and listening back with us for more information on what's happening with that. So with nearly 750,000 Americans excluded from fully participating in our democracy, this is a voting rights issue. It's simply the largest, most blatant example of voter suppression happening in every election cycle, and it is a stain on the fabric of our democracy that must be removed. With 46% of the population of DC being African American, this is a civil rights issue. Right now, there are only 3 Black members of the U.S. Senate, and in some recent years, there have been none, even though the U.S. is 13% Black. Now, here's why Iowans should be behind DC statehood. Iowa has a proud progressive history of being on the forefront when it comes to supporting voting rights, civil rights, and just what's right, even when it's not popular. A couple great examples here I found doing some research. 1838, Iowa ruled a slave from a slave state could not be forced to return to a slave state after they reached Iowa soil. In 1846, the same year Iowa became a state, it became the second state in the nation to allow married women to own property. In 1851, Iowa became the second state to legalize interracial marriage, a century before the rest of America. 1867, African American men were granted the right to vote. The 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which did the same nationally, was not ratified until 1870. 1868, Iowa became the second state to outlaw segregated schools, 90 years before the rest of America. 1869, Iowa became the first state to allow women to join the bar. 1894, Iowa became the third state in the nation to give women the right to vote. A little more recently, in 1934, the first mosque in the United States is built in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. 1971, we already talked about the fact the first bill was introduced to have DC statehood by our own Republican, Fred Schwengel of Iowa. And then in 1984, Rich Eichner, a Republican, became the first openly gay man in the U.S. to run for a voting seat in Congress, running for Iowa's 4th congressional district. Anybody that knows Iowa, it's amazing that that was the 4th congressional district. And so also in 1984, that was when we, as Iowa, ratified the constitutional amendment to give representation, but unfortunately it had failed. So DC residents have been fighting for over 200 years for representation or to become a state, and it is long overdue. Over 700,000 fellow Americans are counting on us to do our part and stand up for what's right. Now, I want to pass to our president, Dr. Selden Spencer, who joined our organization in early 2019. Selden, you want to take it from here?
I got it. Am I audible?
You
I
are.
think so. Okay. So thank you, Tamyra, and thank you all for attending. I promise to be very brief. I am honored to be the president of Iowans for DC Statehood, but let nobody be deluded. It's all about Tamyra, and we're here to celebrate Tamyra, and I'm so grateful for Tamyra's effort. Let me tell you how it all started for me. I was actually at one of Andy McGuire's party, and Paul kind of sidled up to me. I've known Paul for a long time, and then pretty soon Tamyra was there, and they were telling me about DC statehood, and I had some kind of remote idea in the back of my mind about DC statehood. But the more they talked about it, I said, you got to be kidding me. This is nuts. We got to do something better than that. And so it was not hard to get on board, and I've been honored to participate, honored to ride on RAGBRAI with Riding for Representation across the state of Iowa, and honored to be here. Very briefly, why am I involved? I guess at the end of the day, I'm sort of an idealist. I'm sort of American. I believe in democracy. And evermore, even this past year with George Floyd, with the assault on our Capitol, January 6th, more important than ever, our fragile democracy, this fragile architecture that we've been graced with, needs to be defended, needs to be supported, needs to be promoted. And one of the simplest things, one of the no-brainer things to do is to give the 750,000 citizens of DC representation on the federal level. I trust they would do it for Iowans if Iowans were screwed up. But I think until you get people throughout the country, and I know we have people from California, North Carolina, Florida, elsewhere, until everybody in this country says this is unjust, not correct, let's make it right, it ain't going to happen. And I'd like to say that I've done a lot, and I've ridden a lot of miles on RAGBRAI, and I've thrown some money in the coffer, but Tamyra has really carried the wood and the level, and I really appreciate all her work. I don't know that I have much more to say, and I am looking forward to hearing the other speakers. This is a just wonderful cause. I'll just say briefly on RAGBRAI, we had countless people ride up by us. My wife and Lee Bauer and I were all wearing these shirts, and some could not get beyond the idea of no taxation. They were really into the idea of no taxation. But if you read the whole thing, it says no taxation without representation. And if they did read the whole thing, then they really got flummoxed, because there's no defense. There's no defense. The people and the citizens of DC need representation, deserve representation. And as an Iowan, God bless Tam for all the strategies you put together to try and make that happen. I'm with you, Tam, and I'm so happy to be here tonight to celebrate your birthday. And so before I sign off, remember, we're going to have some fun at the very end, okay? So I'm giving it back to you, Tam. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much, Selden. I appreciate all the kind words. Thank you. But, you know, it's a team effort, everything we're doing and all the people that have signed on. And we have a great board. We do, you know, with you, Jackie Easley, Jennifer Lunsford, Kent Balducci, and Leanne Writing. I appreciate all of you so much. Our next speaker is Betty Andrews, president of Iowa, Nebraska NAACP. We had a virtual booth this last Saturday at an annual event Betty started and hosts called I'll Make Me a World. Not only was it an amazing and well-run setup, but I had a blast and made contacts with people here in Iowa and even one in New York. If you have never attended this event, it is a must. I suggest you check into it. But Betty, thank you so much for being here. I'll let you take it from there.
Oh, Tamyra, thank you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. And great timing. I love the 51 for 51. That's awesome. So hope you're enjoying your birthday, and I'm sorry that it has to be via Zoom, but really glad to be here. And also thank you for attending I'll Make Me a World in Iowa. Yes, it was a great time. It was a long Zoom day, but we tried to make it really interactive. So, and I also want to just take a moment to thank you just in my capacity of the NAACP. I know that one of your board members is our state health chair and has worked with me over the years on a number of projects, and that's Jackie Easley. So I know that for us, it's an honor to have her there representing our voice on your board. So just really glad to be here. Thank you also to President Spencer and all of the other board members of the organization. I guess the question that I would probably have for you guys at the end is, you know, it's so interesting to see this type of action happening in Iowa and what that connection is. I saw John in the chat earlier talking about, you know, asking you what initiated your interest in this subject, and, you know, what is the challenge of getting Iowans involved in this issue. And I know for the NAACP, of course, we do fully support DC as statehood. And I guess what I'd like to do tonight is just take a moment to, when I kind of looked into our national NAACP and then at our state level and our local branches, there is a unified statement that we like to present. So I'm just going to go through that statement, and I think it's pretty much a lot of the same talking points that we've heard before, but I wanted to make sure that the NAACP's voice was heard on this. So the NAACP supports full voting and statehood rights to the hardworking men and women of Washington, D.C. Despite the fact that the citizens of Washington, D.C. pay federal taxes, serve on juries, and defend our nation in times of war, like most other Americans, the residents of DC and of the District of Columbia are barred from having voting representation on the floor of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. Despite residents currently paying more federal taxes per person than the residents of any state and providing more revenue to the federal government than more than 30 states, yet district residents have no voice in passing these taxes or deciding how they will be spent. This is the classic example of taxation without representation, and it's contrary to everything that this nation was founded on. This means that over 700,000 people, almost half of whom are African Americans, with Caucasians making up about 45% of the population, are paying taxes and dying for a government in which they have no say. The district has balanced its budget 24 times in the last 24 years. The city already performs the duties that most states do. It operates its own schools, it manages state Medicaid programs, and it receives federal block grants. Like states, DC issues driver's licenses, license plates, and birth and death certificates. It regulates its banks and insurance companies, operates a state-based Affordable Care Act marketplace, and enforces environmental regulations. For the purposes of thousands of federal laws, Washington, D.C. is treated just like a state. Not only do DC citizens not have a voting representative in their US House or Senate, but to add insult to injury, lawmakers are always interfering with DC laws and referendums, which are democratically supported by the majority of DC voters. Congress has been known to treat DC like its own personal Petri dish, dictating what the city can and cannot do and how it may spend its own money. The NAACP strongly supports full representation for all the citizens of the District of Columbia by making the city a state. The democratically elected government of the District of Columbia should decide what is best on local issues, and we need to make it clear that the residents of the District of Columbia should not be used as test subjects for questionable and sometimes objectionable programs. The NAACP again supports full statehood rights for the people of the District of Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betty. I really appreciate that. And having the support of the NAACP here locally and nationally.
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Our next speaker, Bo Shuff, he started with DC Vote in June of 2016 as the Director of Advocacy and Engagement. Just 1 year later, he became the Executive Director and has been a strong leader in Washington, D.C. in the fight for statehood. He is a seasoned political and organizational strategist with a focus on field and outreach development. For more than 15 years, Bo's been working with progressive candidates and organizations to build capacity, achieve results, and win. On a personal note, Bo and also Barb, who I think was going to be here, but I don't know that she is, they have been tremendous. They have been such a great asset and partners as we do what we can out here in Iowa to help with this fight. They've helped with promotional materials, ideas, feedback. Bo, thank you so much, not only for all the help you've been over these last couple of years, but for being here to celebrate with me tonight and to help kind of let us know what's going on and what we can be doing. So, Bo, thank you.
Oh, of course, I'm happy to be here. I wish I could be there with you all in person. One of my very first political jobs was in 2002, working on the coordinated campaign to help reelect now reelected Secretary Vilsack, reappointed, repositioned Mr. Vilsack, and Senator Harkin. So Des Moines was my home for 9 months. I was able to get to all four corners of the state, visiting some of the offices that we had set up. So I am thrilled to sort of be back in Iowa, for lack of a better way to put it. And I wish I could be with you all in person. Just for fun, I used one of the Zoom filters and threw up some party lights. It's a birthday. Let's have a good time. If you want, you all have Zoom filters as well. I found one that looks like a birthday hat. Don't be fooled. It's a piece of pizza. It's a little weird, but you know, whatever. So happy birthday, of course, to Tamyra. 51 for 51 is the perfect. I was just on another meeting. I told him I had to leave to go to a 51st birthday, and that if it had been a 50th, I would have just skipped it, because everybody knows that no longer is 50 the nice round golden number. It is about 51. I see both Franklin Garcia and Paul Strauss here. I'm thrilled to be joined to be with them as well. Our former shadow representative and our present shadow senator. They do great work for statehood as well. There's a lot coming up. We are in the heat of the moment, and the best shot that we have had in a very long time, if not ever, to actually get this bill across the finish line and mess up everybody's flag from coast to coast, which is really my goal. It's a party. I'm going to speak loosely. On Thursday, March 11th, will be the first step in that as we head to the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee for our first hearing. We have had a great hearing a year and a half ago in the same committee, same chair, mostly the same makeup. So we expect that to go well again. If you want to join us, we are going to do a virtual watch party. If you head to the DC Vote Facebook page, or you head to our action page, which I will put in the chat, but it is showupfordc.com. You can get all the information about that. It'll be a watch party, so you can see what's going on. We also enjoy playing opposition bingo. We've got a bingo board of all of the stupid reasons. You can't join us for the watch party, or you're not going to be in DC. Really help us out on social media and help us retweet. To be supportive. I'm thrilled to be here. I am more than happy to wish Tamyra happy what I could do with you all very much.
You have to go, or can you stick around?
Nope, I can hang for a little bit.
Senator Paul Strauss. Now, Senator Strauss, give you a little background, he was recently reelected to another term as United States Senator from the District of Columbia. It is a non-voting representative to the U.S. Senate. As such, he advocates at the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives on behalf of the citizens of D.C. In an attempt to gain full federal representation, self-determination, and eventually admittance to the Union as the nation's 51st state. He also works closely with non-voting congressional delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton and Mayor Muriel Bowser. I can't talk tonight. I apologize, everybody. And DC council members to advance the interests of local residents on federal issues. Senator Strauss is, like I said, the reason that I do this. I met him in 2015 when I put on an event for him while I was executive director for Polk County Democrats. And I was surprised hearing everything and how much I didn't know or how much I misunderstood about the issue. And I became passionate and I wanted to make a difference. And I thought maybe this was something that I could with my background and what I'd like to do. So it's been a few years. We're still here in the fight, but we are closer now than we have been in a very long time. And we cannot let up until we do this for the people of DC. So, Senator, thank you for everything you do, for everything you've done for me. Thank you. And for being here tonight and your mentoring. It means so much. Please take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Tamyra, and happy birthday. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you. Wanted to see my DC friends, and it was great to have Mike and Franklin and basically the band back together. And thanks to Bo and DC Vote for all the work that they continue to do for our cause. The Iowans for DC Statehood certainly did their part in getting a few House members on the bill, but I think your most significant contribution is always the presidential candidates because of the unique place that Iowa has in the history. A few years ago, I was planning a trip out to Iowa. It was my first visit to the state, and it was actually the main purpose was to take my daughter Abigail to look at Grinnell and a few of the colleges out there. And my friend Brent said, you know, if you're going to be coming to Iowa anyway, you should really talk to the Polk County Democratic Committee. They're a great group, and I know they'd be interested in what you have to say about DC Statehood. And Brent put me in touch with Tamyra, and I got on their calendar, and I didn't think that much about it until about a week before I was about to go. The phone rings, and it's Alex Seinswald from MSNBC. And he said, Senator, I see you're talking to the Polk County Democratic Committee. And I said, yeah, I understand they're a great group. It's going to be a breakfast thing, but I'm surprised you heard about it. He says, well, I'm looking at their calendar, and I see that they have you there, but they've also got Jim Webb, Joe Biden, and just about everybody that was on the list to run for president in 2016. And I said, yeah, I guess so. Lots of folks want to see him. And he says, well, there's really only one reason why a senator goes to Iowa a year in advance of the caucuses. And I'm still not catching where he's going here. And he says, Senator, are you running for president? And I just laughed. And he said, huh, so that's not a no. Interesting. And I said, well, go ahead, write what you want. And I just started giggling. And the next thing you know, MSNBC had this story that was picked up by the Post and a few other things. And for about a week there, it looked like my life might be more exciting than it really was. But I got out there. We had a great meeting. We had a wonderful event. And what really impressed me is I've gone around the country speaking on behalf of our cause. And people ask, well, that's terrible. What can I do to help? But in the case of Tamyra and the Iowans, they sprang right into action. And a year later, we had caucus resolutions, everything in the 2016 caucus, Democrat, Republican. And we were able to use that to get momentum and pass it through, not just the caucus resolutions at the precinct level, but on its way up and up through the district level, the county level, and all the way to the state constitution. And we repeated this great work in 2020 when we had so many of our Democratic candidates out there. And the group has continued to grow and become one of the leaders and become a model. The Nevada group, Nevadans for DC Statehood, basically copied their model during the Nevada caucuses. And it's an inspiration for so many state chapters around the country. And so you have been unique in putting your efforts where your mouth is. We get so much more than just talk from you, whether it's writing for representation across your great state or the continued efforts to get a resolution through your state capitol building. I always love coming out there and working with you, and you have meant so much to our movement because you are the living proof that this is not a local issue. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue that really is so important to all Americans. And right now, with our government in such dysfunction, with our country facing so many great problems, this is not the time to have any Americans sitting on the sidelines. The United States, all Americans need everybody in the game. And when you don't let people participate in our democracy, you're hurting the quality of our representative government for all of us. If the orchestra doesn't let the violins play their music, it's not to punish the string section. It diminishes the quality of the symphony and the beauty of the music for everybody. And our democracy is no different than that. And so I'm tired of these stupid questions about DC is going to elect Democratic senators or certain type of senators. One day we're going to elect full voting and equal United States senators. And you're going to have 2 more Americans working in the US Senate, which has become so inherently undemocratic and unrepresentative. You know, a shocking statistic is that right now, 52 United States senators represent only 18% of the population. Think about that. 18% of Americans are represented by a majority of the senators. And of the 50-50 split between the Democrats and the Republicans, Democrats represent 41 million more Americans. We can't continue to allow our government to be stalled this way. DC Statehood is one way to do it. It's simple, it's fair, it's constitutional, it's the right thing to do. And that's one of the reasons why we've always had support from Congressman Schlegel back in the 70s to Tamyra and Iowa state leaders today. Iowans have a reputation for being fair, for being ethical, and for caring deeply about our democracy. And I'm so grateful that you put that spirit to work on our behalf. And I can't wait for the day when the District of Columbia can send 2 people who can begin to repay Iowa and the 49 other states for all the work you've done to help get us there. So happy birthday. I am so pleased to share this event with so many great public democratic leaders fighting to perfect our democracy and to erase one of the stains against that equality that we have. And I look forward to celebrating many, many birthdays with you. But hopefully this will be the last where I come to you from the colony of the District of Columbia. And I can't wait to join you from the new state of Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Senator. I can't wait for that day too. I'm ready. And we'll keep fighting until it happens. So I think we still have some time now for a little Q&A. And we did have a couple of questions pop up in the chat here. It looks like the first one, well, of course, we answered the one that Betty had already asked, that John also had asked about why I got into this. But John Olson also asked, who ran DC day to day prior to home rule? That would sound to me like Bo or Senator. Which one would you like to take?
Well, prior to 1790 to 1801, DC kind of functioned the way it always did. You had a city of Georgetown, you had a city of Alexandria, and they had a local government. And then DC residents voted for a voting member of Congress that represented the part of the state that they used to live in. So if you were on the side where Maryland used to be, you voted for the member of Congress from Maryland. DC only had 2,900 people. It didn't qualify for a congressional district at the time. But at one point in that period, the representative from Maryland's 3rd district actually lived within the boundaries of the District of Columbia. And so he was able to represent DC and Maryland with a vote on the floor of the House. And Virginia's DC residents were also represented. And so it was Congress that took this vote away in 1801, which is why Congress can finally give it back. For a while, we had a territorial form of government. And in 1871, we got to elect a territorial governor and a territorial legislature. And it was really during that period of time that DC became the modern city that it was. We finally built the sewer system. We finally built the kind of infrastructure that was able to allow our capital to grow. But in 1879, Congress again took away our right to vote. And for almost a century, there were 3 presidentially appointed commissioners and 2 committees of Congress, one in the House and one in the Senate, that ran DC like a federal agency. And let me just say that they ran it badly. And finally, in response to that, you had Representative Schwengel, who I learned yesterday has a bridge named after him in Iowa. And so we should maybe get a plaque or something there to help explain his role. But we finally got home rule in 1974. We elected our first mayor that year. And we continued to strive towards full democracy. In 1961, we got a right to vote for president. We used that vote for the first time in 1964. But contrary to popular belief, it doesn't give DC equal representation in the Electoral College. It gives us the same number of electors as the least popular state, which today happens to be Wyoming. And so long as Wyoming remains the smallest state in the union, DC's electoral vote will be tied to Wyoming, not our own population. So statehood is something that we need, we deserve, and when we finally get it, I look forward to showcasing all of the Americans that serve our country. And we often talk about the people that wear military uniforms, that fight bravely, that have given their life. But let me single out a special DC constituent who works in public service, who's been working all the past year to make us safe and to educate us. And that's Dr. Anthony Fauci, a resident of the District of Columbia, who serves his country, doesn't have a vote in Congress. And if anybody deserves representation, it's good old Dr. Fauci.
Great. Hey, I've got another question here. I want to send this one to Bo. Give him a little time here. So, Bo, can you maybe speak to this? And Senator, absolutely feel free to add into it too if you want. Susan Judkins is asking, could DC statehood help during a disaster like the recent insurrection?
Yeah, big time. January 6th was monumentally messed up day here in the district, that's for sure. And it became just painfully obvious that the original justification for the existence of DC under federal control is kind of nonsense. Originally, DC was set up because Congress was concerned about yet another crazed, angry mob taking over the house that the Congress was meeting in. It originally happened in Philadelphia in 1783. They weren't actually after Congress, they were after the Pennsylvania legislature that was meeting in the same building, but it served Alexander Hamilton's purposes to tell everybody that they were after the Congress. So they put in the Establishment Clause and they created the District of Columbia as an independent district that's controlled by Congress in order to protect Congress. But it turns out Congress can't protect Congress. It took the residents of DC to do that, and especially the Metropolitan Police Department, MPD, our local police force. It was the local PD that was brought in and was able to re-secure the building and usher everyone to safety and start working with the FBI to prosecute those who were involved. And what we saw was a massive failure of the National Guard, and that it's looking more and more like it was intentional, like the president specifically decided not to send the National Guard because, unlike all 50 states, the DC National Guard isn't under the control of our executive branch. It's not under the control of our mayor. It is only under the control of the president. If we want the National Guard involved, we have to go ask the Department of Defense, aka the president. And so it was very slow in getting there. In fact, Maryland and Virginia National Guards were able to get there faster and help secure the building as well. So it just became very, very obvious that not only was the original justification basically bunk, but the facts of how we live and operate now are that DC will protect the Capitol. While it won't be part of our state, the Capitol, the federal enclave is what it's referred to. The part that everybody knows is the Capitol, what I call the postcard area of the Capitol, the White House, and the monuments and the memorials. That'll all stay as a federal district and be preserved for all Americans to be able to exercise their First Amendment rights and air their grievances and all of the things that should happen in a Capitol. What's different is that the land around it, where all of us, the 712,000 of us that live, will become the 51st state. But we're also really proud of being the nation's capital, and we will always defend it and protect it, whether or not it's inside our borders or not. And that became really clear on January 6th when that's exactly what we did.
Wonderful. Thank you both. I have another question I want to address real quick. I think I know the answer to this. Correct me if I'm wrong. How many congressional districts will the state of DC have? That will end up being one, correct?
For now.
For now, until the population increases to the point where we can get a second one.
That's right. Yeah, it's going back to what Mr. Strauss said. It's just like the Electoral College, right? Our right now it's based on our numbers, and we would qualify for one congressional district. But based on the growth we've seen, it may not be long until we have two.
Good with that. Senator Strauss, I have another question specifically for you, sir. When are you coming back to Iowa for a visit?
I can't wait to go anywhere, especially to see my good friends in Iowa. I haven't been. In fact, let me just say this. The last time I was on an airplane was I was heading back from Iowa at your caucuses. And it was the last trip I made anywhere was to Iowa last year. It was my one and only trip. So I can't wait. And what better place to make my next one would be when we can all safely travel again. So I hope that the vaccine rollout is going well in Iowa. We're doing our best here in Washington to battle it. One of the things that really made this a difficult year was that in the first coronavirus relief bills, the federal government decided to treat DC as a territory when it came to funding resources. And you know what happened? The virus, which is a micropathogen, did not really understand the political jurisdiction argument that the Senate was trying to make. And so Congress, so the virus didn't tragically make us only 1/3 as sick. The virus tragically didn't only infect 1/3 of our people, but we only had 1/3 of the resources to fight it. And literally statehood became not just a political issue for us, but really one of life or death. And so we hope that one day the Senate soon will pass the bill that will treat DC equally and compensate us for the resources we missed. But we're doing our best with, only 1/3 of the resources to try and make this area safe. But I can't wait to get back out there, and it would be great to see you all here again. We love having you here, and it's not actually today, but remember, you have a holiday here in the District of Columbia. Every year we celebrate Tamyra Harrison Day that has been proclaimed by the mayor. And I know she wanted to be here with you tonight to wish you a happy birthday. But she is just dealing with so much between we're under a special alert for tomorrow for domestic terrorism again, because you have these QAnon knuckleheads that read in the Constitution the old inauguration day of March 4th and have somehow fixated on that as a day that something is supposed to happen. And so we're back on high alert. And then the pandemic rages on, and in fact, some sad news. It was not that long ago that her older sister was lost to the virus. And I know we all mourn with her. And so she's with you tonight in spirit. Everybody in the District of Columbia, from the mayor on down, appreciates all of your contributions. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate the other Tamyra Harrison Day by joining with you here for your birthday.
Awesome. Well, absolutely, our thoughts and prayers are with the mayor. Please share that with her if you would. Bo, I know you just said you had to go, but we have one more question. Senator, if you're okay to stick around. But Bo, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Hey, Bo,
Too
wait
bad.
a
I'm
minute.
glad to do it.
One thing.
I'm still here.
You know what I want for my birthday? From you? I want the video from when I was in DC.
Oh, good Lord. Good. I'll tell you the story of that one at some point. I am happy to. I don't know that I can deliver a video, but I'll deliver a good story one way or the other.
They did feature you in their Instagram post today. If you look at their Instagram post,
That's
they
true.
had a picture of you.
Oh, wow.
And a picture of you is the event picture for all of our sign waving events. So we miss you here in the district. Look forward to having you back. But
right.
the video is a good story, and we'll connect on that. You all have a great evening. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Bo. And we're not too far from being done. We got a couple more things to do, but I do want to get this last question before we wrap up. And that was from Betty Andrews. Senator, she wants to know, what would the transition be from the city government to the state government? How would that work?
It will work pretty well. One of the things that we've done to get ready for statehood is we've been following the different steps of what we used to call the Tennessee plan. And so in addition to electing shadow senators and the shadow delegation, DC has already passed a state constitution that was sent to the voters for ratification. The boundaries of the new state have been voted on in a referendum, and we have a transition plan in place so that when the Senate passes it, the House passes it, and it goes to President Biden's desk and he signs it, we get going right away. The mayor becomes a governor. We have our DC council becomes the House of Delegates, and we have a plan in place to start electing these new offices and new officers. And so we will be ready and continue to be ready from day one.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for the great questions, too. Really appreciate that. So I want to give you what my birthday wish is besides Bo. Bo was a very specific birthday wish. But I want everybody on here to come up with 10 names of people and emails who do not live in Iowa or DC who would support DC statehood. And I want you to email them to my email. It's in the chat, Tamyra@IowansForDCStatehood.com. Help us in DC vote and all the organizations who are all working so hard together to continue to grow this effort on a nationwide a national level, so that we can all stand strong behind our friends in DC. That's a huge thing because that's exponential. And it may not seem like a big thing, but that's your challenge for me for my birthday. What you can give me is 10 names and 10 emails of people that we can add to the list of people who support in this country, making sure that the residents get statehood. Now, what's next? With every meeting should end on a what's next, right? We can just don't have a meeting to have a meeting, or a birthday party, still has to have a reason, right? So contact your senators. I mentioned this earlier in the meeting. Contact your senators, your representative. Tell them to support DC statehood. The hearing is coming up on March 11th. I think Bo shared in the chat also. You can go to dcvote.org, or you get a link there in the chat that you can do the watch party with everybody, see what's happening that day, and support it, chat with the rest of us, and ask questions, and enjoy the day together. And then make sure you're signed up for emails through our website. It's www.iowansfordcstatehood.com. It's in the chat also. And follow us at Iowans for DC State on Facebook and Twitter so you can keep up with what's happening and move to action when we need you. That's so important sometimes that, there might be something that we need to do quickly, or we want you to be a part of, and we need to make sure that you're getting that information. So that's what I had, but I believe, Selden, you asked to have one more thing here at the end, right?
Absolutely. Now we're going to get rowdy and everybody can unmute. We're going to sing you happy birthday. Got it? And I know it's going to be chaos, but do it with spirit and with love. And Tamyra, appreciate all that you do. So here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tamyra. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, that was epically horrible. I loved it. Loved it. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. Well, you know what? You all have a wonderful evening. Look at that. We kept it to an hour. I'm excited.
Right.
Yay.
Thank you for your support.
Hey, Tamyra. Hey, Tamyra, has our senator left yet? I wanted to just, if I could, just pull him back for just 30 seconds.
I think he was.
Anything you need, Betty.
Awesome. Thank you.
There he is. Yep, he's still here.
Awesome. I actually posed it in the chat, but I was just wondering if DC would then become a city, or, would it be a state and a city, or would it be a state with no city? How would that work?
Well, right now we're really a district, and so we're not really a city or a state. We are a federal district, like a lot of other federal districts. We would be urban, but the fact that our chief executive is called mayor and not governor is really an accident. All the other territories have governors. So we would be urban. We wouldn't suddenly become rural. We don't really have a big farming economy like Iowa does, although ever since we legalized marijuana, it's been growing, but that's another story. So we would be a state, but we would be an urban state, and our state might look different, just like, Hawaii is a state that looks like an island. So I hope that answers your question. I think
I just wanted to make sure. So, and I know you said your district and DC, so it would be one or the other, or it would be both? I'm just trying to.
Well, let me think of the Vatican. They're technically a nation state. They have sovereignty and they're their own country, in fact, under international law. But they are a city within a city. So we would continue to affectionately maybe be called a city when you're describing us, but legally the government would be a state. It would be a unitary state government. And if we wanted to, we could create smaller cities. Washington used to be the largest city in DC, but not the only one. There was Georgetown, there was Uniontown, Alexandria, before it was retroceded, was part of DC. So we may go back to a county structure or set up smaller cities. My neighborhood used to be called Tenleytown, but it's not legally a town with an incorporated municipality. We have a unitary government, and then we have these 37 commission districts that function kind of like Iowa's 99 counties, but again, everything's pretty close to one another.
This is a good question, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
What
All
was
right.
that?
Did anybody else have any questions before we do take off? I know I don't want to leave anybody hanging. No? All right. Well, again, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your evening for me, for the birthday, and for the people of DC. I thank you. This is so important to me. I think it's too many people, and why this is not a bigger issue and something that more people are in an uproar about, I don't know. But you know what? We need to make sure they're educated so they understand why they should be, and we need to get it done. And we're going to do it together. And again, I thank you. I appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Happy
Thanks,
birthday,
Tamara. Happy birthday.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy birthday, Tamara.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, Diane.